Welcome back to Educator.com's English Grammar course. This lesson is on pronouns. Let's get started. All right, we're going to begin with a brief lesson overview. We're going to ask, what is a pronoun? What is it? How does it work? And we're going to look at the many different kinds of pronouns. Personal pronouns, possessive pronouns, reflexive pronouns, relative pronouns, demonstrative pronouns, indefinite pronouns, and interrogative pronouns. That's a lot of pronouns. And finally, we're going to focus on how to tell pronouns apart from adjectives because they do different things, so you have to be aware of which one's which. All right, what is a pronoun? Well, pronoun comes from the Latin pro, meaning for, and nomen, meaning name. Now we studied nouns in our last lesson, so pronouns stand in for nouns, for names. A pronoun takes the place of one or more nouns. It can also take the place of a phrase or a clause. We'll go into that in a minute. And pronouns are used to avoid repetition. You wouldn't say, Bob went to the store, Bob bought milk, Bob went back to Bob's house in Bob's car. You get really repetitive with the Bob. So you use pronouns. Bob went to the store, he bought milk, he went to his house in his car, and so on. All right, we begin with personal pronouns. Personal pronouns refer to specific people or things. So there are singular and plural personal pronouns. Singular, I, me, you, she, her, he, him, and it. Notice the it that can take the place of an awful lot of different things. Now the plural version, we, us, you again, they, and them. All of these words can stand in for people or things. Let's look at some examples. All right, see if you can find the personal pronouns in these sentences. I love you. Do you know them? We love it. And she told me that he was coming to visit us. Take a good look. Pause the video if you need to. See if you can find the personal pronouns. All right, I love you. I takes the place of the speaker's name, and you takes the place of the person being addressed. Do you know them? You, again, takes the place of the person being addressed. Them takes the place of the names of all the people you're talking about. We takes the place of the names of all the people doing the talking. Love it takes the place of whatever they love. She takes the place of a girl's or woman's name. Told me takes the place of the speaker's name. That he, third person again, was coming to visit us. Once again, it saves you an awful lot of name repetition. All right, possessive pronouns. These have a very specific function. Possessive pronouns indicate ownership or possession. Now they come in singular and plural, just like personal, and they're related. So singular, we have my and mine, your and yours, her and hers, his and its. Now the plural, our, ours, your, yours, their, and theirs. Let's look at some examples. This is my cat. Is that his handwriting? The fault was ours. My book has a coffee stain on its cover. See if you can find the possessive pronouns in these sentences. Take a good look. Pause the video if you need to. And here we are. This is my cat. It indicates that I personally own the cat. Is that his handwriting? Once again, he owns the handwriting. The fault was ours. The fault belongs to us. My book, the book belongs to me, has a coffee stain on its cover. The cover belongs to the book. Note that they refer to the nearest antecedent. Book and my, of course, will refer to the speaker. All right, reflexive pronouns. These are the easiest pronouns to spot. They indicate that the person or thing that performs the action also receives it. These are better known as the self pronouns. So, myself, yourself, himself, herself, itself, plural ourselves, yourselves, and themselves. Now, this sounds a little bit confusing in the abstract, but once you see it in a sentence, it's very clear. See if you can find the self pronouns, the reflexive pronouns, in these sentences. You only like to talk about yourself. The Lord helps those who help themselves. I'm giving myself a present. And the dog chased its tail until it made itself dizzy. Take a good look. Pause the video if you need to. And here we are. You only like to talk about yourself. You're both doing the talking and being talked about, so you use the reflexive pronoun yourself. The Lord helps those who help themselves. The person doing the helping is receiving the help. I'm giving myself a present. I'm doing both the giving and the receiving. And the dog chased its tail until it made itself dizzy. The dog is both causing the dizziness and receiving it, unfortunately, for the dog. All right, relative pronouns. Relative pronouns introduce subordinate clauses that modify a noun or pronoun in the sentence. Now, the most commonly used relative pronouns are who, whom, whose, which, and that. But wait a minute. What's a clause? We haven't gone over clauses. Well, I'll explain. A clause is a related group of words that contains both a subject and a verb. Now, it's different from a phrase because a phrase is usually missing the subject, the verb, or both. We'll cover phrases in a minute. Clauses have both a subject and a verb. Remember that part. Now, an independent clause expresses a complete thought and could be its own sentence. In fact, a simple sentence is an independent clause. A subordinate clause cannot stand by itself. It depends on another clause to complete its meaning. So, we're going to look at some examples of that. See if you can find the relative pronouns from that earlier list in these sentences, and we'll see how subordinate clauses actually work. Sally is the one who cooked dinner. The dog that barks loudest bites least. I threw the tennis shoes, which smelled terrible, into the trash. Take a good look. Pause the video if you need to. And here you are. Sally is the one who cooked dinner. Now, our subordinate clause here is who cooked dinner. It has a subject, who. It has a verb, cooked. It even has a direct object, dinner. But you can't just walk up to someone on a subway platform and say, who cooked dinner? They'll look at you like you're crazy, and they'll also think you're asking a question and that you forgot to use the rising inflection at the end. So it's dependent on one, which is another kind of pronoun that we'll get to in a minute. Now, the dog that barks loudest bites least. That barks loudest. The dog is the main subject, and bites is the main verb of the sentence, but we have this little subordinate clause in here that gives extra information. It has the subject that and the verb barks. So it adds extra information about the dog, but you can't just walk up to someone on the subway platform and say, that barks loudest. Doesn't make any sense out of context. It needs the rest of the sentence. It's a subordinate clause. And finally, I threw the tennis shoes, which smelled terrible, into the trash. Once again, a subordinate clause relies on the rest of the sentence, but within that clause you have a subject and a verb, which and smelled. Now let's look at demonstrative pronouns. I like to think of demonstrative pronouns as the pointing pronouns. They identify or point to specific nouns. This, that, these, and those. So think of them as anything you can point to. This thing, that thing, these things, those things. They're all about pointing. Let's look at some examples. That is my favorite movie. Whose keys are these? If you're looking for a delicious recipe, try this. And I want one of those. Take a good look. Pause the video if you need to. That is my favorite movie. Notice that it's acting like a noun. That thing over there is my favorite movie, that movie. Whose keys are these? Okay, we're referring to a specific set of keys, taking the place of the word keys, so that's what pronouns do. If you're looking for a delicious recipe, try this, and I want one of those. So you see, they still take the place of nouns. We'll get to when they act like adjectives in a minute. But they also point to things. All right, indefinite pronouns. Appropriately enough, indefinite pronouns is a long and somewhat indefinite list. Indefinite pronouns refer to non-specific people or things. So we have things like all, another, any, anybody, anyone, anything, both, each, either, everybody, everyone, everything, few, many, neither, none, nobody, no one, nothing, one, several, some, somebody, someone, and something. Wow, that's a long list. And they all stand in for something not clearly identified. Let's look at some examples. See if you can find the indefinite pronouns from that list in these sentences. Has anybody seen my friend Martin? Nobody loves me. How happy I could be with either of these women if both of them would just go away. First one, then another came through the door. Someone say something. Today I don't feel like doing anything. Take a good look. Pause the video if you need to. All right, has anybody seen my friend Martin? Has anybody in this large category of people? I don't really care who, just somebody. Nobody loves me. Once again, indefinite could refer to just about anybody in the group, but it means nada. How happy I could be with either of these women. Again, we're not specifying a particular woman. If both of them, again, we're not using their names, would just go away. First one, anyone. Then another, any other, came through the door. Someone, any person, say something, anything. Today I don't feel like doing anything. Indefinite pronouns. Now, interrogative pronouns. These you probably run into as question words. They introduce questions. They're almost always used as the first word in a question. Who, whom, whose, which, and what. Let's look at some examples. See if you can find the interrogative pronouns from that list in these sentences. Whose car is parked outside? Who do you think you are? For whom are you calling? What do you think you're doing? Which box do you want? And what was that noise? Take a good look. Pause the video if you need to. And here we are. Whose car is parked outside takes the place of a possessive noun or pronoun. Who do you think you are takes the place of a name, presumably. For whom are you calling? Once again, takes the place of a name, presumably because we don't know. What do you think you're doing? Which box do you want? And what was that noise? All right, now here's the tricky bit, telling pronouns apart from adjectives. Remember those pointing ones, the demonstratives? This, that, these, and those, and some of the indefinite pronouns can also be adjectives. To tell them apart, remember that pronouns appear alone and therefore replace a noun, and adjectives come before a noun and therefore are modifying that noun. So if you're trying to figure out whether one of these words is acting as a pronoun or an adjective, look to see whether there is a noun or pronoun right after it. If there is, it's acting like an adjective. If it's sitting there by itself, it must be a pronoun because it's doing the job of a noun. So let's look at some examples. The adjective form of this might be, this dinner is delicious. This is an adjective modifying the noun dinner. The pronoun version would be, this is delicious. There's no noun right after it. It's not modifying anything else. It's sitting there like a noun all by itself. So it's a pronoun. All cats have tails. All, in this case, modifies cats. But the pronoun version would be something like, I believe in justice for all. All meaning all people, but it's standing in for the noun people. I believe in justice for all. You can also tell that it's acting like a noun because it is the direct object of the preposition for, or the object of the preposition, rather. But we'll get to prepositions in a later lesson. All right, see if you can find the pronouns in these sentences. Whose yacht do you think that is? She told me that she loved me. This is the best day of my life. I'm sure that cat, which always comes around at dinner time, will show up soon. Just keep telling yourself that everyone likes a friendly person. The pleasure is mine, and all for one and one for all. Take a good look. Pause the video if you need to. And here we are. Whose yacht do you think that is? We have an interrogative pronoun, a personal pronoun, and a demonstrative pronoun. She told me that she loved me. They're all personal except for that, which is relative. This is the best day of my life. This, demonstrative, my, possessive. I'm sure that cat, which, relative pronoun, always comes around at dinner time, will show up soon. Notice that we didn't mark cat that. It's modifying cat, so it's acting as an adjective. It's not a pronoun. Just keep telling yourself, remember it's a self pronoun, so it's reflexive, that everyone, indefinite pronoun, likes a friendly person. The pleasure is mine, possessive, and all indefinite for one indefinite, and one indefinite for all indefinite. Man, those three musketeers, they really like their indefinite pronouns. So there you have it. That's all for this lesson. Thank you for watching Educator.com.